Well, hello and welcome to this session of ExecuNet Masterclass. I'm your host, as always, Tony Vlahos, and my guest this hour is nationally recognized franchise consultant and international best-selling author, Mr. Pete Gilfillan. These days, many executives are re-evaluating their work lives and pondering their options for the next great chapter in their careers. They are exploring the semi-absentee franchise model as a path that will bring them exciting, fresh challenges, the pride of business ownership, as well as greater income security. And Pete is here to tell you all about it. Well, I am always delighted to introduce today's guest. Pete Gilfillan, as I said, is the international best-selling author of Hire Yourself. He has a proven track record of changing people's lives. In fact, over the years, he has helped hundreds upon hundreds of executives like you explore franchise ownership and successfully reset their careers. With that really brief intro, welcome back, Pete, to the ExecuNet stage. They are all yours.
Thank you, Tony, for the great introduction. Again, my name is Pete Gilfillan. I'm an entrepreneur, a franchise consultant, the international best-selling author of the book Hire Yourself, and most importantly, a proud corporate escapee. I escaped the corporate world, and we are here today to talk about the best executive franchise model for 2022. So I'm excited. I'm going to teach you about that, the best model out there. I'm going to encourage you to leverage semi-absentee franchise ownership to set up a side business while keeping your corporate job. I'm going to teach you about franchising, and I'm going to answer a lot of your common questions. Now, if you are a corporate executive that is looking to take control of your destiny, to create career and income security, to build a supplemental income, diversify your assets and your income, set up a plan to escape the corporate world, or just live life on your own terms, you are in the right place. This will be a great webinar for you. I promise you, it'll be a good use of your time. Now, my story is probably similar to many of yours, right? I worked really hard. I built a great career, successful corporate executive. And it started really in high school when I was told, go to college, get a job, right, with a big company after you graduate, and you're going to spend your career there. And I thought that was the case when I joined Ford right out of college. And I got on the executive fast track, and I found myself moving up very quickly. And I was in charge of, after about 17 years, running about a $5 billion market for Ford. And it was really exciting. I gave my life to Ford. We moved all the time. I missed events with my family. I mean, it was crazy. I loved the corporate world. And then in 2006, I'm in a staff meeting with my team, and my boss calls me out of it, and basically on the phone, and I go into my thing, I take this call, and my boss offers me a separation package. And I can't believe it. I'm in shock. I've given my life. I love it. My blood was blue, for goodness sakes. And I couldn't believe they're offering me a package, a voluntary package of leave. And so I was kind of blown away by this. And I went home and talked to my wife, and we thought, well, maybe our journey is to leave Ford and go do something else. So I took some time off. I reconnected with my family. And then I found myself at my kitchen table with my wife, and we were literally looking at two opportunities. I had a job offer from a company called Terex, and they're the third largest construction OEM in the world. So I was being brought in if I wanted to run the Americas for them, for the construction group. And then I had a LOI for a business, a small business in my community. And I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. My wife decided that safety came with the job. And so I took the job, and I was head of Americas, then ran their global sales. And I found myself traveling 5-6 days a week. It was crazy travel, crazy pressure. And my family wasn't happy. My wife was managing the 4 kids and thought I was living the good life on the road, which is not the case. But anyways, I'm missing all my kids' events, and it was not the life that I wanted to live. It wasn't worth the money. So one day I decided I was done. The money wasn't worth giving up my life. And so I walked away completely, and I decided to start becoming an entrepreneur. I invested in a master franchise. I started my franchise consulting business, and I've been a franchise consultant now for 11 years, nearly 12 years, and I'm on a mission. And I wrote a book because I really do want to help other executives take control of their destiny, to build wealth and live life on your terms. As Darren Hardy would say, is the size of your life is determined by the size of the problem you solve. And I want to help other people kind of escape the corporate world. So my promise to you today is that I'm going to encourage you to set up a franchise side business to create career and income security for yourself. I'm going to teach you about the best executive franchise model. I'm going to answer a lot of your common questions, and I'm going to offer you some great resources at the end. So we're going to cover a lot today, and I'm going to answer a lot of questions, whether, what if you are a 50-year-old corporate executive, or why are more corporate executives taking the path of franchise ownership? What is franchising? What's the best executive franchise model? Is franchise ownership right for me? What are the capital requirements? Are there good resources available for capital? Can I replace my corporate level income with franchising? How do I find the right franchises? And bottom line is, there are advantages and disadvantages to franchising. So we're going to cover a lot today. So let's get going. Are you a 50+ corporate level executive? And why are more corporate executives taking the path of franchise ownership? Well, the future for corporate executives, I think, is tough. We're going to see more layoffs. We're going to see more downsizing as there's consolidations in industries. You don't need this 2 leadership teams when a company is absorbed. Bottom line is, you're going to see more of that. And you're going to see more of the underemployed consulting and contract work. That's where they let you go and then they bring you back as a consultant and a contract work. So they have less loyalty to you even then. They're just using you as a commodity. And people are changing jobs every 4 years versus every 30 years. When I started at Ford, I thought I was going to spend my full career there, and that's not the case. And I think it's even actually less than 4 years. So there's just no loyalty anymore from corporations. And there is increasing age and unemployment discrimination, if you can believe it or not. Now, here's a crazy stat, right? 50% of 50+-year-old corporate executives are forced out of their companies or into retirement before they're ready. So they're not ready, but the company says, we're done with you. They push you out. So 50% of 50+ corporate executives get pushed out before they're ready. Here's the scary stuff. The ones that get pushed out, of the ones that get a new job, only 10% make the same amount of money or higher. So bottom line is, it's going to be tough for executives. So why are more corporate executives investing in a franchise? Well, I always ask the question when I'm working with executives. I said, why would you invest in a franchise? And what they tell me is, they say, Pete, I want to take control of my destiny. I want to have independence. I want to create an income. I want to build an asset that I can sell someday, or it can be a legacy for my family. I want to be my own boss. I want to make the decisions. I want to make a difference, or I want to make an impact. I want to be engaged. I want to have purpose. Heck, if I'm going to be working hard, I want to be the one rewarded for the hard work, not a corporation getting the financial benefits from all my hard work. I want to build, lead, and even mentor a team. I just want to be happy, satisfied, and proud. I want to create a family business, maybe include my spouse, my significant other, my kids. I want to include people in my business, and I want to leverage my personal capital. I've got capital. I want to use that to build something for myself, and I want to beat ageism. I don't want anybody to clock me out of my career or my income. Simply put, I want to create career and income security. So why do executives start a franchise business on the side? Well, there's benefits, right? I can leverage my corporate income while starting that side franchise business. So it's just an easier path. I've got that income to cover all my expenses as I'm starting the business. It allows me to diversify my assets and my income. And it allows me to create a supplemental income stream to build wealth and to protect myself in case somebody knocks on the door and lays me off down the line. Or simply put, it's a way to build a bridge to escape the corporate world, to start living on your terms. And if you remember anything from today, jobs are no longer income security, right? Bottom line is, there's no loyalty left. And so when they don't need you anymore, you are gone. And so there's no security. If you are a business owner, as a business owner, you will not be laid off. You will never be given a separation package, and you will not be furloughed. You will have income security. So what is franchising, and what are the 2 main franchise business models? So the definition of a franchise is very simple. You have, for lack of better terms, the franchisor. They have the systems, the process, the procedures, the brand. They've built this business model. And then you have the franchisee, somebody that's interested in becoming a franchisee or to invest in this business model. So the franchisor sells the rights to use this business model for a period of time. That is called a franchise fee. It could be $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. I pay as the franchisee to become a franchisee to use that system. And the ongoing relationship, that partnership, the franchisor is going to provide support to me. And for that support, I am going to pay royalties, a percentage of my revenue in most cases, 6-7% back to the franchisor to give me that support that I need. And when we talk about franchising, it's very cool. Franchising is booming. And franchising, most people think of Subway, Dunkin' Donuts, McDonald's, and yes, those are franchises. But according to the IFA, there are over 3,000 franchise companies in 75 different industries, and they're touching every aspect of our life. And I use the example in my book, right? You get up on a Saturday, you go work out. Yeah, that's a franchise. You stop off and get a cup of coffee. Yeah, that's a franchise. On your way home, you pick up your dry cleaning. Yeah, that's a franchise. You get your oil changed in your SUV. Yeah, that's a franchise. You pick up your kids, taking them to their martial arts class. Yeah, that's a franchise. You stop off and get a sub after the class with your kids. Yeah, that's a franchise. You come home, there's a van in your driveway, they're washing the windows of your house. Yeah, that's a franchise. Franchises touch every aspect of our life today, and it has a significant contribution on the U.S. economy. In fact, there are over 800,000 franchise establishments today. They're employing nearly 9 million people, and the contribution to the GDP is a little under $500 billion. Franchising is booming. When we talk about franchising in its simplest form, there are two basic business models. There are service-based franchises. So think of franchises that are service-based that either go to a home or a business. So they may provide a product or service. So if they could come to my home, they could paint my house, they could do window treatments, make my garage floor look really cool. They could fix stuff that I can't because I'm not very handy. They could go to my business and wash my windows or fix my HVAC system, or they could provide business coaching, right? The idea is there are service-based franchises, and then there are facility-based franchise concepts. So think of that local strip mall down the street where somebody can take 2,000 square feet and then create a place where I can get a haircut, get a sub sandwich, get a massage, take a Pilates class, whatever it could be. It's facility-based, and it could be anything you can think about. Now, as we think about this idea of franchising, and the question on the table today is, what is the best franchise model for 2022? So let's take a step back. We're seeing a growing movement over the last couple of years where franchise ownership is where people want to work on the business, not in the business. Simply put, they don't want to be the artisan, they want to be working on the business. They want to set up the overall direction of the business, make key decisions, and oversee the manager. So when we look to invest in a franchise, there is different levels of engagement. And we're not here today to talk about the artisan model, where somebody invests in a franchise where if it's a lawn fertilizing business, they want to be the one fertilizing the lawn and getting their little truck and go fertilize the next lawn. Or if it's a sub shop, they want to be the ones making the sub sandwiches 7 days a week, right? We're here today to talk about the executive model. And that's really what this idea is, that I want to work on the business, not in the business. And over time, I want it to grow. And as we talk about the executive model, there is different levels of engagement. So some people, they want to be involved in the executive model full-time. So they're working on the business 40 or 50 hours a week. They're not an artisan, but they're involved in the business, setting directions, managing manager full-time. The other side of the spectrum is what we call executive model semi-absentee, where you can keep that corporate job or keep that consulting business, and you start the franchise on the side. You get it going, you put a manager in place, you watch over that manager 15 or 20 hours. We always have to mind our business, but the idea behind it is that it allows us to have it on the side. And that's really what we're here to talk about, is the executive model semi-absentee. Now, whether you're a full-time executive model or semi-absentee, in both cases, you're looking to build something larger, multiple territories, multiple locations. So as we talk specifically about 2022, the executive model semi-absentee ownership continues to thrive. And we've always, for a very long time, had an executive model semi-absentee facility-based. So think of like the Supercuts or that place where you do yoga, right? Where essentially, the owner of Supercuts is not cutting your hair. They're not there. They have multiple locations. Same thing with yoga class, most likely at a Yoga 6, they're not teaching the classes. Really, the idea is executive model, semi-absentee, facility-based. We've had a very strong run for that for several years. But now what we're seeing is executive model, semi-absentee, service-based businesses. Up until about last year, we saw this trend coming, is that before, service-based franchises would not allow you to operate semi-absentee. Simply put, they believe you must be involved in the business full-time to be successful. So they wouldn't do that. What we're seeing now is a growing trend of service-based franchise concepts allowing you to keep your corporate job and start the franchise on the side. An example might be Mighty Dog Roofing. So why semi-absentee franchise ownership? Well, it allows you to keep your corporate position while starting a franchise business on the side. So you can leverage that semi-absentee business model to create that side business. You can keep that corporate position while starting your franchise business. And the idea behind this is that you don't have to be involved in all time. You can get it going, put a manager to watch over it 15 or 20 hours a week. Well, what do you need to know about semi-absentee ownership? Well, first, it takes work to get a business going. It just takes extra effort to get a business going. And finding and leading the operation manager that will be kind of there when you're not there is critical to the success of your business. You got to find the right person and you got to lead them. And you, again, always have to mind your business 15 or 20 hours a week. You don't have to be there every day. Now, some people, they can do it in 5 hours. Other people, they can do it in 30 hours, right? It really kind of depends on your ability, and your leadership and time management skills will have a major impact on the performance of the business. Your leading and your time management is so critical when you have a semi-absentee franchise. So is franchise ownership right for me? Well, it's important for you to determine what characteristics are important to you if you were looking at investing in franchise. Like, what level of engagement do I want involved? Do I want to be the artisan? Do I want the executive model full-time, semi-absentee? How big do I want to build the business in terms of an income, right? How much cash flow do I want this business to generate over time? Do I want to manage and lead people? Do I want to scale and build? Do I want to have multiple territories or multiple locations? Geographically, where do I want the franchise to be? Do I want it to be in Austin, Texas, or Naperville, Illinois, right? Where do you want to have it? And how important statuses? Do you really care about how much people think about your business from standpoint? If it's a good, honest business making money. And what's your comfort level around business development, talking to people about your business and what you offer, your product or services? And do you want your family involved, your significant other, your spouse, your kids? What kind of business schedule do you want? Do you want to operate a business that is a lifestyle business, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5? Are you okay with the 24/7? What's your tolerance for risk? How long do you want to own the business? Do you want to own the business for 5 years or 15 years? It's also important that you take an assessment of your skills and strength. Are you good at sales and business development? Are you good at managing and leading people? Do you have the ability to follow a process? Do you have a passion or desire to satisfy customers? And can you process change and evolve over time? Business, we're always evolving, we're always changing. Do you have the ability to do that? Now, when I was at Ford and I was in their franchising department, they called it the market rep department, we would grant or award the Ford franchise to dealers. And we would look at 4 primary things as we assess them to award the franchise. First, we'd make sure that they had some business acumen, some experience, the capacity. And then we also looked at, have they lived a life of good character from that standpoint? And then we looked, do they have enough capital to be successful as a business owner? And do they have a history or a passion towards satisfying customers? Now, when I wrote the book, Hire Yourself, I added the 5th C because I thought it was important that as a franchisee, it's a partnership and you have to be able to cooperate. It goes both ways and stuff like that. So cooperation is one of the 5 C's. Now, I also always like you to think about, do you have the traits of a successful business owner? We know successful business owners are disciplined, they're confident, they're open-minded, they're self-starters, they're competitive, they're creative, they're determined. They're passionate, they got strong people skills, and they got certainly a strong work ethic. Now, people always ask me, okay, how much does it take to get into a franchise? And so let's talk a little bit about kind of the minimum investment levels to get into franchising. So I already taught you today that there are service-based franchises and facility-based franchises, 2 basic business models. And there's a significant range in terms of the investment levels. So a service-based franchise, the minimum investment for a service-based franchise is $100,000, or simply put, something greater than $100,000. Depends on the size and the number of territories, all that kind of stuff. And facility-based franchise concepts, because we're building out the facility, well, then the initial investment is something greater than $200,000. It could be $250,000, it could be $450,000, but at a minimum, it's $200,000. So what are the capital requirements if you're going to invest in a franchise, and what are good sources of capital. So when we look to invest in a franchise, bottom line is there are two primary capital requirements. So franchisors will one say, to be eligible to invest in our franchise, you have to have so much liquid capital. And that number is you need a minimum of $75,000 to $100,000 liquid capital to be eligible to invest in a franchise. Now, the good news is the liquid capital is loosely defined. It could be about anything: cash, stocks, bonds. It could be equity in your home. You tap your home equity line. It could be retirement dollars instead of investing in stocks and bonds, actually investing in your business. So it just can't be borrowed money like an SBA. The second capital requirement franchisors have is you have to have a certain amount of net worth, personal net worth. Net worth is assets minus liabilities equals net worth. And when we talk about net worth, you need a minimum of $100,000 net worth to qualify to invest in a franchise. Now, the good news is that there are many different ways to fund a franchise business. And we call this or at least I call it the funding wheel. So one resource that you can do to fund a business is a small business administration loan, or SBA loan. The SBA isn't doing a loan, they're guaranteeing the financial institution that loan. They're standing behind that loan from that standpoint. Now, the SBA loan is pretty popular. It is something where it's anywhere from $50,000 up to $5 million. You usually have to put 20 to 30% down. And bottom line is a variable rate. So it's usually prime plus 2 or 3 points from that standpoint. You pay origination fees, closing fees. So there's lots of fees associated with it. And we're seeing a little bit of tightening with the SBA loans now, where if you have a lot of means, you may not qualify for an SBA loan, but certainly it's a mainstream thing. A subset of the SBA loan is the SBA Express loan. It's a up to $150,000. It's just a little bit easier to get. There are traditional loans, and again, that's where you, in most of the case, have to have industry experience to kind of get those. So we don't see as much of that. Some franchisors do in-house or franchisor financing, so they may finance the franchise fee for you, or finance the equipment. They may have in-house financing. A lot of people are using home equity lines, HELOCs, to fund their business because that is frozen capital. And it is also cheap money with where rates are today. Some people use friends and family money. Sometimes people use outside investors. A lot of people use their retirement savings, their 401k, their ROA, as long as it's not tied to your current job. In most cases, you can use that through a compliant way, tax compliant way, where you're not paying any extra taxes using the ROBS program. So a nice way to fund a business. And some people, if they have it, good brokerage accounts, they can actually take a line against their brokerage portfolio. So many different ways. And as we look at the funding wheel, there is ways in which you can leverage multiple financial resources to scale your business. So this is a fictitious, it is just an example. These numbers are not real, for instance, not for investment decisions. But let's say you're going to open up 3 locations. And location 1 is the total investment is $300,000. So you decide to fund that business, $90,000 of your cash, and you're going to go do an SBA loan for $210,000. When it comes time to fund your second location, well, let's say you decide to take a little money, $90,000 out of your house. You're going to take $210,000 out of your retirement dollars through the ROBS program for, again, the same $300,000, just a different mix. In location 3, you say, okay, now it's time to fund this, but so I'm going to take a little bit of $90,000 out of retirement, and I'm going to do a conventional loan with $210,000 for a total of $300,000. So there's many different ways in which you can fund your business. Now, one of the questions people always ask me, and right to the point, is, hey, can I replace my corporate income through franchising? And the very simple answer to that is the financial performance of a franchise business depends 100% on you. It's your ability to grow and scale the business. Here's a fun example. These are all fictitious numbers. They're not made to do investments. And we're going to use I'm going to use this for a couple examples. So let's just say you're a corporate executive and you don't want to invest in a franchise. You just want to keep your corporate job, right? It's steady Eddie. So that is the column over the left-hand side, corporate executive salary. And let's say you have a salary of $200,000, and over the next 5 years, you're lucky enough to get raises. And by year 5, you've got a salary of $240,000. The problem is if the company comes in and they decide to reorganize you out, bottom line is that salary of $240,000 is rented, as my good buddy would say. That is not an asset. So that is gone. When they let you go, there is no asset of value with that $240,000. Right now, let's say that you decided to do what I did, just leave the corporate world and start investing in building some franchises. So that's the middle column where you're building the business, paying yourself a salary and building an asset. So let's just say I'm going to open up 3 locations in 3 years. So year 1, I get my first location open and I don't pay myself any salary from that standpoint. Year 2, I give myself a small salary from unit 1 of 50,000. Unit 2 gets open. Year 3, I pay myself 75,000 on unit 1, 50,000 from the second, and I get the third unit open. Now it starts getting interesting, right? In year 4, well, now between the 3 locations, I'm taking a salary of 225,000. So I pretty much come close to replacing my corporate level income. Now in year 5, it gets exciting. Now I've built it up with the 3 locations of a salary of $300,000, but also I built an asset that could be sold for a multiple. So that's the strength of kind of building it. Now, see the red boxes. If you were going to do the executive model semi-absentee, which I am proposing today, let's say you keep that corporate job on the left-hand side and you have a salary after 5 years of $240,000. If you've done executive model semi-absentee and open up the 3 locations, basically on the side, you would have a supplemental income of $300,000 plus you built an asset. That is the power of executive model semi-absentee. Now, again, only you can determine how much time and scale it's going to take you to hit your financial objectives. But this is a good example of leveraging the executive model semi-absentee. So how do I find the right franchise? Well, finding a franchise that fits you, first, you need to know what characteristics are important to you or what you're looking for in a business. You need to know what you want to accomplish with the business. You certainly want to leverage a proven method to do your validation or your due diligence of a franchise business. And you always want to keep an open mind. And what I tell people is that what we believe to be true about industries or businesses can be totally wrong. So always tell people, keep an open mind as you go start looking for business opportunities and always have fun. You know, we don't get a chance very often to go explore business opportunities or a new path in our career, in our life. So have fun learning about businesses. You get to meet great people and learn about some really cool businesses. And remember, don't turn your hobby into a business. The definition of a hobby, if you go look it up in the dictionary, it's something you do outside of work, right? If you make your hobby your business, that becomes work. You can ruin a hobby. Do not ruin your hobby. Great example of that is in the book E-Myth Revisited about a wonderful lady that loved baking. I'll leave it for you to read the case study. You know, when we're looking to find a franchise, I believe there are 3 ways in which you can find a franchise. There's good, better, and best. Good is you can go to some of these websites and you can click some boxes and request information on some different franchise concepts. And that's very efficient. You can get a lot of information. Unfortunately, your information may be sold from that standpoint where somebody's buying your information and they may start contacting you about franchise opportunities, whether it's a franchisor or even a franchise consultant. So that's good. Better is go see a company that you like and go to their website and see if they have franchise opportunities. And this is a very direct approach, but it is also one where you're going directly into the sales funnel. Nobody's really helping you from that standpoint. So I believe the best way is leveraging a franchise consultant. That's what I do with about 150 executives around the country each year. It's really with this idea of getting to know, understand you, what you're looking for, what you want with the business, and connecting you with potential franchise matches. So as I help people on the journey to explore franchises, I spend some time having them complete a simple questionnaire. Then I do a consultation call with them. I spend 75 minutes just getting to know them, just asking them questions, learning about what's important, what they'd want with the business. And I take everything that they share with me and I create a written summary. So it's a nice tool for them. It encapsulates all their interests, what's important to them. And I will go look for franchises that align with those key characteristics they shared with me. And I leverage a company called FRANCHISEE. They've been screening franchise companies for 20 years. And then I will connect the candidate or the executive to the franchise companies and they start their due diligence. And I will be there by their side, coaching them and giving them education and giving them resources and certainly supporting them through the very stressful decision-making process where fear comes into play. So the idea is it's a journey. In candidates, when people and executives look to invest in a franchise, what we call the franchise investigation procedures. There are 4 core steps that you go through as part of your due diligence, and they happen over about a 6-week period of time. Now, some people 4 weeks, some people 12 weeks. I'm not worried about the number of weeks, but you got to know that there are 4 core steps that you go through to evaluate franchises. But first, all the way over to the left-hand side, you need to know what characteristics and what you want to accomplish with the business. You need to know what level of engagement. Do I want to be the artisan? Do I want to be executive model, semi-absentee? And what kind of customers do I want? Do I want to go to people's homes or businesses? Do I want people to walk through my door? So what kind of customers you want? So once you've kind of determined what you're looking for, well, then you start your investigations of franchises. In these 4 core steps, the first one is the introduction call, and that's really about kind of getting to know each other and learning more about the business model, getting your questions answered. And the franchise disclosure document's number 2 step in the process. And that's really a document that all franchises have to have. It's required by the Federal Trade Commission. The acronym is FTD. And everything you need to know about the franchise opportunities in this, they're going to give you a copy of that document. They'll call to review and answer any of your questions. The third step, in my opinion, is the most important, is franchise validation. That's your opportunity to talk to actual franchise owners within the franchise system you're interested in without the franchisor present. And this is where you can ask them questions. You can find out if the franchises are happy, if they're making money. From that point, again, it's my favorite and I think the most important part. The last step is what we call discovery day, meet the team day, confirmation day, really about the relationship. You're feeling good about a franchise company. You're going to their corporate headquarters, meet the leadership team, meet the sports FC, the operations. You're getting to know them. They're getting to know you to decide if there's a match in terms of the relationship, the partnership. Things to consider when you are looking to invest in a franchise or you're investigating a franchise is first, look at the experience of the leadership team. Do they have experience leading a franchise system? Do they just build a great business and now they're franchising it? Do they have the experience to lead a franchise organization that has 100 franchisees or 200 franchisees? What kind of support do I get when I launch my business? What kind of training do I get? Are franchisees satisfied within the franchise system? What's the image and the reputation of the franchise? What's the size of the franchise system? Do they have 5 franchisees opened or 500 franchisees open? Is it an upcoming concept or has it been a concept that's been around for 20 years? What's the culture in the field organization? Do you feel like you're joining a family business or a Fortune 1000 company? What is the marketing model that you'll use to find customers? What's the ongoing support? So what kind of coaching do they give you? What do they do to support you as a franchisee as you go forward? And if it's a facility-based concept, how do they help you find the site and also build out the location? And what's the overall financial strength of the franchise company? Now, remember, franchise ownership is a business partnership, and people forget that. It's a mutual approval process between you and the franchisor. And a franchise partnership is a long-term relationship. You're committing to a long-term partnership, and you are also joining a peer group of other franchisees, which can be highly beneficial. One of the questions people ask me is, hey, this COVID-19, these are crazy times. Should I invest in a franchise right now? And I believe there are 8 reasons why right now might be a good time to become a franchisee. Number 1 is that we all should be creating some type of income security. We want to protect ourselves from future corporate layoffs or bumps in the road, whatever we want. We always want to be diversifying our assets and your income, and franchising will allow you to do that, where you're taking control of your income, you're taking control of your assets. And certainly what we learned during the pandemic is we want to live life on our terms. Maybe we want to work from home. Maybe we want to eliminate business travel. So those are all things that with a franchise, I'm in control of that. I'm not told to get on a plane or anything else like that. I can have the flexible hours to be present in my life. And there is a lot of pent up demand and you want to take advantage of it, whether it's around people's homes where people want now to get their houses painted. I used the example before where my neighbor, it took him a year to get a sprinkler system in. In some parts of the country, if you want to get a pool, you might be waiting 2 or 3 years to get a pool. There is a lot of pent up demand. And this is a great time to validate the franchise opportunity. I call it the COVID-19 questions, right? You can ask franchisees as you're evaluating franchises, hey, listen, how did the business partner step up and help you over the last 24 months? how did the business model weather the storm? And so there's some great validation opportunities to see how this kind of franchise will do during a pandemic or crazy times from a standpoint. And there are resale opportunities that have come through because of the COVID-19. So there are opportunities there. There's a potential softening in commercial real estate where maybe landlords are giving you a little bit more TI money or rent abatement. And certainly there are economic resources, federal, state, and local out there. Well, COVID has also created challenges, right? So we all know that it's a tight labor market. It's hard finding employees and contract laborers. It's just, that's kind of the nature of what we're going through today. And we're seeing a really promising sign. Franchisors have really kind of stepped up to help their franchisees find core employees. And the way in which they're doing that is they're actually creating their own internal recruiting departments within franchise systems to help the franchisees find those skilled labor people. But it's still work, and you still have to do a great job of leading and being the right kind of boss for your employees, or having the right team of managers. Also, there are product and commodity issues. We've all watched the supply chain issues happening. So those have presented problems, and certainly incorporating health and safety protocols. Like when somebody walks through my door, they have to wear a mask, or when my employee walks into a home, bottom line is they have to wear a mask. So we're having to, or sterilize, or cleaning, the way in which we clean our business, whatever. As we think about franchising, there are advantages and disadvantages to franchise ownership, right? When I wrote my book, one of the terms that I use in my book is entrepreneur light. Franchising, we talk about business is work. Franchising just makes it an easier path, not less work, but just an easier path, because they're providing an operating system. In many cases, it's a business in a box. It's turnkey. Follow steps A, B, C, D, and E. Do exactly what they say. And they provide training and ongoing support. And as I mentioned before, you're joining a network of other franchisees, which can be extremely powerful. Now, franchises, I believe, increase your chance of success. There's always risk in business, but I think it improves it. You see, it saves you time. In many cases, it can save you capital because you're making less mistakes. Less mistakes save you capital. That improves your chance of successes. And somebody's already proven out and refined the business model or the concept. So it's just maybe you have a better chance of success. Now, certainly, when we think about franchising, there are disadvantages, right? So to get the rights to use that business model, you're going to pay a franchise fee, and the franchisor is going to give you ongoing support. So you're going to have to give up a portion of your revenue to pay the royalty payments. Now, all franchises have restrictions. They want you to, basically stay within the guidelines, because they don't want a franchisee screwing it up, doing something that would hurt the business opportunity for all the other franchisees. So they have restrictions, so nobody does something crazy with marketing that is beyond what would be right for the business. And franchises want you to follow the system, more so because it's the ticket to success. So they want you to follow the system. That doesn't mean you can't make the system better, but at a minimum, you must follow the system. And when we look to invest in a franchise, it is a long-term commitment. It's an agreement. It's a partnership agreement. It could be 5 years or 10 years. It's a long-term commitment. And there is, as I'd mentioned before, always risk of failure. That's just part of business, but we're trying to mitigate that with the franchise. And like with marriage, if you pick the wrong partner, picking the wrong franchise partner can be a painful experience. So why do people go through this process of investigating franchises but choose not to invest in the franchise? Well, there's many different reasons. Some people just decide, hey, you know what? I looked at it, franchising is just not for me. Some people, it's just a lot of work to evaluate franchises, and they don't want to put the time in to kind of find that right partner. And many people get caught up into fear and anxiety, and it stops them from following their dreams. That false evidence appearing real, and it paralyzes people. And we can always find a reason why not to do something, right? And they just get caught up into that fear. Some people, they just have not enough capital, lack of capital. Some people, and I believe it or not, still think that a job equals income security. Hopefully, we've broken that paradigm today. And some people have a maverick mentality. It's my way or the highway, and that just doesn't work with a franchise. We need to kind of work together with them and follow the system. And sometimes people's family and friends kill their dream. One candidate I worked with, his family decided to have a vote to see if they would allow him to invest in a franchise. They voted the idea down. And some people, they go through the process and they don't make a decision at the end. They're not capable of making a decision. And when we can't make a decision, that's very simply a no decision. Now, Tony and I, we get the opportunity every year to host webinars, and we've hosted over the years thousands of executives on webinars just like today. And we're fortunate that some of the executives that have been on a webinar like today have ultimately went through the process, explored franchise business opportunities, and invested in the franchises. And they basically shared their success stories with us, which is really cool. So here are some, and you can go listen to the recordings of some executives that sat on a webinar just like today. They decided to go through the process, have a conversation, go through the process, explore franchises, invest in the franchise, and they share their story. Like Jim Griffin, senior level executive, wants to escape the corporate world, wants to own boutique fitness franchise concepts in both Florida and California, and he shares his story of and how he successfully did that. Bill Welsh, senior level executive, wanted to escape the corporate world, wanted the executive model full-time. He wanted a business where he can be involved in it full-time, and he shares his success story. John Weiss, successful executive, entrepreneur. He had started many different businesses. He was ready to get back to being an entrepreneur, knew it's tough to start it on his own, so he saw the benefit of an executive model semi-absentee franchise where they had the business model for him, and he shares his success formula of how he did it. And then Mike Furnish, executive, decides to invest in a franchise on the side, shares a story about getting a couple of them opened while having his corporate job. So many different success stories. Maybe someday your name will be on the success story list. So if you've been listening today and you just have more questions, or you want to talk a little bit more about your specific situation, I encourage you to go to hireyourself.com, ExecuNet offer, and you can schedule a time to chat with me. You can ask your questions. We can talk a little bit more about your situation. I'll certainly give you some great resources. I'll give you a copy of my book, Hire Yourself, which is a playbook that allows you to understand this idea of leaving the corporate world to be in control of your destiny, to live life on your terms from that standpoint. So, in summary, if you're a corporate executive looking to take control of your destiny, to create career and income security, to build a supplemental income, or just diversify your assets or income, or maybe it's to set up a plan to escape the corporate world, or just live on life on your terms, I encourage you to explore franchise ownership, and specifically executive model semi-absentee is the way to go. It's a great path. So I encourage you to learn more. With that, Tony, I'm going to turn it back over to you for questions.
All right, terrific, Pete. So let's dive right into a few of these. You reviewed how you help executives through their journey to franchise ownership. What is your engagement model? Everyone usually wants to know that.
Sure.
And
sure.
When are you paid? How are you paid?
Yeah, so I am a matchmaker. I don't sell franchises. I'm a matchmaker. And so the way in which I get compensated is I help people go through the process, but they never pay me anything. So the candidates, the executives that I work with, never sign anything. They never pay anything. And so they could go through this process, and after a month and a half, they go, this isn't for me. Well, then we just part way friends. Now, if somebody goes through the process and they invest in a franchise, well, I get compensated two ways for helping them. Number one, the franchisor pays me a referral fee, very similar to how like an executive recruiter. They find great value in franchisees or candidates that go through the process that have a franchise consultant, because the person is helping them through the process. So there's great value to them, and they're willing to pay a referral fee. The second way I get compensated, and I hope when I do a great job, that the executives say, listen, you got to talk to my other buddies from that standpoint, and basically learn about franchising. So, or simply put, referrals.
Okay. So just to underscore this, the executive who wants to become a franchisee does not pay you directly for your services, correct?
Correct.
All right, awesome. So these days, Pete, are executives gravitating to certain types of businesses? I know in the past, for example, we have discussed service-based businesses. Why is that a good direction for a corporate executive?
Well, I think the idea is that, number one, they're migrating towards the executive model semi-absentee. So we spent a lot of time talking about today. That's just an easier glide path. I shared the example where I did it the hard way, right? I quit my corporate job, left my large corporate income, and started investing in businesses. So when we talk about the executive model semi-absentee, I can have that luxury of my corporate income, and that just pays my bills. It pays my mortgage. It buys all my clothes and food and all that kind of stuff. So it's a nice way to kind of cover my living expenses when I start the business. So first is they're migrating to executive model semi-absentee. And executive model semi-absentee has been around a long time. As we talk about like haircutting, supercuts, and things like that, you never really see the owner of a supercuts cutting hair. So that's a great example. The migration, and we're seeing, and it started last year, is executive model semi-absentee service-based businesses, where before it really wasn't allowed. They just didn't want you to be semi-absentee with the service-based business because there's more spinning plates or moving parts. There's just more complexities to it. So you didn't see that. You are now seeing a growth, or a lot more of service-based businesses will allow you to operate semi-absentee. Now, the benefit of a service-based business over a facility-based concept is, number one, the investment is a lot lower, the initial investment, because you're not building out that facility. Number two is when we talk about a service-based business, you can get the business running faster. So if you decide to become a franchisee, sign the franchise agreement May 1st, you could be going into training in May or June and have your business going when you get out of training, like the day it starts, right? If it's a facility-based concept, well, if you sign May 1, well, then now you're going to start looking for facility that may take you a few months. It may be 6 months, 8 months, 12 months before you get your business operating, because you have to find that location and build it out.
Okay. So we have people who live in expensive parts of the United States. The question I'm getting is, do you recommend that if we're looking at buying a franchise, we look in places near where we live? Or if it's a semi-absentee model, could I look in lower cost environments, for example, places where it's less expensive to start up, hire, and so on? What's your take on that one?
Yeah, so starting a business, you have to mind your business. And so a lot of people start a business where they are, just because it's easier. It's easy for me to stop by or to meet in person with the managers. There are certain people that do it where they pick a lower cost geographic area and they do it semi-absentee. You just have to be prepared that you're going to have to go visit that location, or visit that territory or whatever. So the idea behind it is that you got to be willing to kind of go there on a regular basis to check in on your business. So you can't do semi-absentee where we live in Illinois, we have it in Texas, and I go down there once a year. That doesn't work, right? So I got to figure out a routine or a way in which I'm going to be down there on a regular basis to check on my business. There's just something about actually being there. We talked about the success story of Jim Griffin, right? Where he lived in Florida. He was opening up locations in California. He had a regiment of when he would go check on the business. So when we talk about this idea of starting a business and then also relocating, so let's say I live in Illinois and I want to move to Texas and start a business. Well, that's two big stressors. One, moving is stressful, and then also starting a business. So sometimes starting a business where you're at is easier. It's always hard work, but just an easier path.
Okay. I'm going to ask you just maybe one more, and then we're going to have some final thoughts from you, Pete. But before I get to that last question or so, everyone, if you're thinking about this, give Pete a call. It's that simple. You might have some questions I'm not going to get to. More than likely, things will occur to you after the session is over. Don't be shy. This is your career we're talking about, and your next great step could hinge on all the right information from a trusted source, and that is Pete. Clearly, he's proved that today. He knows what he's talking about. Okay, so a lot of franchisees succeed and many fail. If you could distinguish between the two on a couple of factors, what would those be? Why do some, in other words, succeed and others fail, Pete?
Yeah, it's a great question. You can take the same business model and you can have one person that does wildly successful and the other one doesn't do so good, right? In many ways, it comes down to a couple things. Number one is that sometimes people invest in a franchise business where they think that because they got the systems, process, procedures, they don't have to work very hard. Then there's nothing further from the truth. It takes a lot of power and energy to get a business off the ground. It's just the way it works. And it's like that plane that you take on vacation where it's filled up with bags underneath and all the people in it. It takes a heck of a lot of power to get that plane off the tarmac. But once it hits a certain altitude, they actually can pull back on the power. That's one is just, you got to work hard. Number two is that there are some people that invest in a franchise and they don't follow the system. And it's crazy, right? You invest the money to do that, but sometimes they think they know better than the system. And remember, Bill, we talked to him in our success story, and he says, I started out poorly, right? He had run companies, and he started out poorly because he wasn't following the system. So you need to follow the system. Now, that doesn't mean you can't make it better, but at a minimum, you got to follow the system. Number three is that in life, in business, there is going to be problems. There's going to be speed bumps. There's going to be things that happen like COVID-19. And we as entrepreneurs have to be problem solvers, and we can't blame it on somebody else. And I use the example of two restaurants. COVID-19 started, right? And they're in the same town. One, COVID-19 shut them down. They furloughed their employees. We're just going to wait and see what happens. The other restaurant said, okay, if I can't have people in my restaurant, let's go buy a bunch of lumber. Let's create an outdoor seating area. Let's create a special lane where people can do curbside pickup. Well, 6 months later, what do you think? Still, one is still shut down. The other one is thriving, cars down, things. So you always have to be a problem solver. And last is that when we're a business owner, we need to lead and manage people. And that takes work. You have to be able to manage and lead people. You have to mind your business. And some people just don't do that. So those are the four reasons that I think separate people from being successful and not so successful.
Really, really powerful points. So let's start to wrap this up. As always, thank you for making time, for sharing your insight. Thanks to everyone who tuned in today. There were many of you. I got to many of your questions, but not all. And so I'm going to ask you to carry those forward. Give me a call, ask him your questions. You can get as personal and direct with him as you like. And that's your moment. It's really important to take advantage of that moment so you can get a clear sense of direction what your next step might be. Pete, before we officially wrap up today's session, any final thoughts for our audience?
Yeah, I think you owe it yourself to learn and continue your learning. You did a great job of being on the webinar today for learning. So if you're ready to take control of your destiny or just create that career income security that I think is so important going forward, or maybe it's for you, it's just diversification of your assets or income, or just starting to put together a plan to be able to escape the corporate world, live life on your terms. You owe it yourself to continue to learn about franchise consultants, and I'm here to help. As you can tell, I'm passionate about teaching. I'm passionate about helping executives take control of their destiny, live life on their own terms. So I encourage you to schedule a time. Let's talk a little bit about your situation. I'll answer a lot of your questions, and certainly you can have a book, which is a nice guide for your journey to escape.
Well, terrific. Thanks again, Pete. Thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoy your afternoon, and I hope to see you at the next session of ExecuNet Masterclass.